Hello, everybody. It's Dennis O'Brien here with Susan Johnson and our wonderful producer, Matt Rupar, back again on Let's Talk About It. Right, Susan?
That's right, Dennis. So glad to be back here and look at this beautiful day. It's been wonderful, and we're coming up on a great holiday celebration, aren't we?
Yeah, July 4th is fast approaching. I'm concerned because it seems to me as though I know the summer just started, but it's actually, to me, the summer starts around the end of May, 1st of June, and it's going by too fast.
Everything's zooming along.
And
no pun
we've got
intended.
okay, we've got all right. We've got the July 4th coming up. What is it? Next Thursday, I think.
Yeah, it is next Thursday.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
finally got I got a text from the big guy here at WILI, Wayne Norman.
Yeah.
Reminding me about the parade and asking if I'm going to be in it.
Well, I think you probably will, and so will I, right, Dennis?
I'll be in it in some form or other. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I'll be walking or riding or flying or whatever.
Ooh, I know I've never seen you fly in the parade.
Well, I've ridden in planes.
We've ridden in planes in the parade.
Not in the parade. No, not in the parade. But there's always a first time. You never know what you're going to see when you come to the Boombox Parade.
I think we'll have to check in with the airport, huh?
I think I'll have to check in with Wayne Norman.
Yeah.
And
see what he's up to.
Yeah, and the parade.
He's always got some different thing. Nobody knows what he's going to be dressed up as,
I'm
do
sure
we?
he's still working on it.
You think?
He hasn't revealed it to me, but he doesn't usually reveal it to me.
Well, he doesn't. He keeps it a big secret. Probably somebody around here might know what he's doing. But
no.
Okay, Matt Rupar says he doesn't know. Okay.
Wayno usually decides, last minute. He's got a week.
Mm-hmm.
It's a week. It's a week away. I've got a week to decide what I'm going to do. So if I have some issues. I have some arthritis in my knees. I'm just getting over an infection in my toe.
Yeah. Really, Dennis?
Huh? Really? No.
I thought there were HIPAA requirements here where you weren't supposed to
divulge
your
talk
overall
about
conditions.
I can talk about my own condition, not yours or Rupar's.
Yeah, you better not be talking about me.
I'm not talking about you. I got nothing but good things to say about you, honey.
Oh, well, that's very kind.
Yeah,
okay.
Anyway, so I will. I expect to be at the parade. I think I've only missed one in all the years that. I think it was the second one or the third one. But I think I missed one parade. We were away or something, and we're always around because, we have a pool in our backyard. So I hate to leave that pool in the summer. Mm-hmm. And so we'll be around, and you're going to be in the parade too, right, Sue?
Oh, absolutely. I think I just indicated that I was planning on being in the parade. I always march with some group or another, usually elected officials. But there are also other groups that, really are wonderful that have a chance to get out and talk to people and march in the parade. And so I'm always excited to see who's going to be there and what people are going to be doing.
Well, I am an elected official now.
Yeah.
Again.
Oh, you could march with the elected officials.
I swore I would never do that again, but I did.
You did swear.
I did swear, but I'm probably one of the older, more experienced elected officials. I'm a member of the vice chair of the Willimantic Taxing District Board of Directors. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I decided to run for that. I guess I was solicited by some people to run for it. And
yeah.
I gave in. And it's not the first time I've done that. I've given in to some solicitation from somebody. Because I think you were the one that when I retired from the probate court, and you thought I was needed some more to do, even though I'm always busy.
You are, but
things.
I thought, you were just kind of in your office all the time.
Oh.
And I just thought, maybe you should get out of the office and do some stuff out of the office. So I just thought
I
that would be a
spent 6
good
years
thing.
on the town council.
Yeah, I got you out of the office,
Those were the best years of the town council ever, the years that I was on it. With Randall Prose and Tom DeVivo and Dawn Niles and Charlie Critch. And a whole bunch of great people, and Clinton Adams, and Rose Reyes, Dagmar Knoll, and served with, I probably left somebody out, but I'm not trying to exclude anybody. But I worked with Jim Rivers and you, Susan, and those people I just mentioned on the great projects that we initiated during that time, including the new senior community center, which has been very successful.
Yes.
The new downtown parking garage, which has been very successful in my view.
Yep.
And the jewel in the crown, which is the huge renovation, the high school renovation. I was talking to Matt Vertife last night because I was at another meeting last night because I'm the chairman of the town cemetery committee.
You are a busy guy.
And we had I was appointed to that by
probate judge.
Judge John McGrath,
Yeah.
my successor in the probate court. And we had a meeting last night, and after the meeting, I was talking to Matt Vertife, who is a town official, of course, and he asked me, he said, Dennis, have you been inside the new school since it's been renovated? It has not finished yet, but a lot of it's been done. And he said, it's amazing. And
I'm glad to hear that. I want to go through that. And I know that I've been trying to have the House Chair of Education come and do a tour as well. Representative Curry, Jeff Curry, wants to come out. And we had 2 different separate meetings scheduled to have him come out and meet the students, come out and do the tour. And first off, we ended up with the meetings with Eastern Connecticut State University and UConn, all the people there to discuss their budget priorities. And then the next time we scheduled a meeting, we had a big, huge snowstorm. So both times we were like, just run right out.
So we still have yet to have Jeff Curry.
Yeah, Representative Curry.
The House Chair from East Hartford of the Education Committee come out to view the project. And I know that, they're constantly looking at ways to, modify the way that the state spends money on schools.
Right.
Building schools.
Right.
And this is a project that everybody should see based on what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
That it's beautifully done. It's been handled well by greatly by the committee, which is headed up by Mike from the engineer, and he's been on our show. We should have him on again. And he was chair of the Water Commission as well. And, Randall Prose is on the committee, Tyler Griffin. It's a great committee. They've done a great job. And you did a great job getting a 95% reimbursement with the help of Senator Flexer from the state of Connecticut to cover the cost of this construction.
Well, thank you for that. That's one of the 2 steps, that happens in the House and the Senate when we work together. And we're all on the same page. So I was very pleased, and so was Senator Flexer, to be able to bring 95% reimbursement. And some people were really couldn't believe it that we did that, but we did. And it was really nice because the former chair of the Education Committee, as you know, from New Britain, Representative Santiago, he was instrumental in making sure, because as being from New Britain, and we're lucky we had him from New Britain, and then we had now we have Jeff Curry, both from more urbanized areas, and they understand how the urbanized areas have been left hanging for a long time in terms of the reimbursement rates for the education cost sharing grant. And so this is one way of him saying, hey, we know you've been not getting all the money you should get, and here's another way for us to help with that. Even though it's bonding and it's a town issue, all the overall budgets, whether it's education or a town budget, those 2 budgets ultimately cost the taxpayers money. So this is a way that we are able to, be recognized for everything we've done, trying to make sure we take care of the students here in the Windham Public School system.
Well, the chairman of the building committee is, of course, J. Michael Callahan. He is a good friend of ours, and I'm having a little trouble remembering names right now because, to be quite frank about this, Susan and I suffered a great loss on the 9th of June, 9th of this month, 3 weeks ago. The Sunday our son Stephen O'Brien passed away. A lot of suddenly and without, we had no idea that, he's 49 years old, seems to be healthy, and we're still mourning, we're still suffering from his loss, and I don't know, grieving, and I don't know how long it will go on. I've never lost a child before, and right now I'm not in the best of shape in terms of my emotions and whatnot, and I just wanted to say that, and that's my mind isn't working as well as it normally does, but I'm trying real hard to keep busy because that's all I know. That's how I know to deal with everything, and I just want to take this opportunity, along with Susan, to thank all of the many people who have been so kind to us during this very tough period in our lives, for all the kind words, all statements of sympathy and support, whether it be verbally or in writing, on Facebook. We've received cards and letters, and every time we run into somebody, people say, "We're sorry, Dennis. We're sorry, Susan. We're sorry, Leslie, our daughter." And this has been a real blow to us. And I'm hesitant to mention it on the radio, but just forgetting somebody's name who I know very well led me to think to myself, I've got to say something, because I really want to thank the community. I want to thank the Chronicle for printing the obituary in timely fashion and doing a wonderful job. And I want to thank the radio station and everybody here and everybody in the community for being so kind to us during our time of need. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Susan.
Oh,
but
I do, and I feel really very, very sad, and it's had a big impact on my thinking and how I feel about things. And these kinds of losses this was a very sudden loss. We never expected Stephen to pass away, and we thought he was healthy. We knew he was a wonderful person. He was really, really a great worker, where he did financial management and consulting and training in Boston in a big financial firm. He also was a wonderful family member and really connected with everybody in the family. He loved doing that. And a wonderful scholar, amazing scholar, scholarships for undergraduate and graduate school, and even for his PhD. And so, which he actually said, "I've had enough school. I'm going to go to work." And so he was a wonderful, wonderful person, and a really, really great personality. And so he's really missed, and it's hard to even go between saying how shocked we are, then being really, very upset, and then going to try to figure out how to, adjust. And there is no real adjustment until, these things we go through these things, and these are serious grief that we're suffering with right now. And so, no, we're not just the same, are we?
No, and we came on the show last Friday. Mm-hmm. After we attended the Awaken funeral up in Wakefield, Massachusetts, where Stephen lived with his wife Julie, and then there was another burial this week in Glastonbury, Connecticut. Stephen did spend a lot of time in Willimantic with us. He spent a lot of time with us as a kid. He played basketball at the old YMCA on Main Street in the Little Pal program. Did very well. I taught him how to play ball. I worked with him on his baseball. He played Little League in Newington, Connecticut. Did very well. Played high school baseball for Newington High School. Was a pitcher, threw very, very hard. Big guy, strong guy. Seemed to be in incredibly great shape. And now he's gone at 49 years old. And Susan and I both lost our fathers at a very young age. And my father was 50 when he passed away, and I was just turned 18. So it's not like we have had these kinds of things happen to us before, but there's nothing. When I was a probate judge for 12 years, I saw this happen very rarely, but it did happen, where parents would lose a child. And I don't think there's anything worse than that, Susan. I don't know.
I think you're right about that, Dennis. And one of the things, I lost my father when I was 5 years old, and my father was 33. The doctors seemed to think it was because of what happened to him during World War II. He served in the World War II. He was in Pearl Harbor. He was cleaning up after the bombings there. He was in a situation where he was there where they were doing the testing of nuclear bombs in the Pacific Theater. He passed away with cancer at 33. So now, of course, as a child, you understand they're gone. But, you go through each developmental stage realizing the impact of the loss of a parent at that young age. On the other hand, I think now about my grandmother who lost her son at 33, and that is another way for me to understand my family background.
Yeah, I mean, we're not trying to bring anybody down, but I think, and I wasn't sure whether I wanted to talk about this today. We didn't talk about it last week. We had a wonderful guest on from way down in, where is she from?
Ansonia.
Ansonia, that's right. She's in the Valley.
Mm-hmm.
So wonderful state representative, doing a great job and working with you on some items. And she was on last week, and that was a great show. And I didn't really want to interrupt that show by talking about the loss we had suffered on Sunday morning, June the 9th. We were in Seattle, Washington when we heard the news from Leslie, and we hurried home, cut our visit to Seattle short. We were with my cousin Michael Miotti, who used to be a state senator from Glastonbury, and the whole thing was quite shocking. So, in any event, again, I want to thank everybody for their kindness and support during this period of mourning for us. It's been tough, but it's helped an awful lot to get all these notes and telephone calls and cards and letters from people here. And of course, we met a lot of Stephen's coworkers and friends when we were at the services up in Wakefield, Mass. And I have nothing but great things to say about all these folks who have helped us to get through this somehow. And we're Susan and I are both fighters. We're both strong-willed, and somehow we're every day. Things get a little better, but it isn't easy, and it's not going to be. It's not going to happen overnight.
Well, you're never the same after something like this, and I want to thank everybody as well. Knowing that you're not alone, knowing that people care enough to say something or send something on Facebook or send a card or say something to you in person is really helps a lot. Because being alone with something like this is the worst. So I'm really, really thankful for all the people who have been reaching out to us.
I cannot imagine being alone with I wouldn't be alone. I'd be with Susan. Susan, never alone when I'm with you, honey. And it's always great to be with you. And we don't always agree on everything, but we agree on the basics. And I've had a wonderful life with you, and I want it to go on. I want to continue. I want to continue for as long as I can. Life is not easy, and things happen that are really tragic, but it's still wonderful and worth living. And it's worth living here in Willimantic and Windham, USA, and it's also great being here with WILI and associated with great folks here at the station like Matt Rupar, who's giving me a signal that it's time for us to take a break. So we're going to be right back, and we're going to talk about some legislative matters, right, Sue?
That's right, Dennis.
Okay, we'll be right back. Thank you for listening, folks.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Susan Johnson. I'm here with my co-host, Dennis O'Brien, on this beautiful Friday afternoon, and we're just getting ready to talk a teeny bit about some of the things that have been going on at the Capitol. I know that one of the things that we had to do, and the Senate was in on Wednesday, and the House was in on Thursday, yesterday, So we were there to discuss a number of bills, but the primary reason we were there was because of the changes that people have tried to make in the car tax and some of the problems that have occurred with that, which I think we should have just left the car tax alone and just gone with how we were. But a lot of people felt the pressure from their constituents, and I've heard this here too, that the cost of the car tax had escalated during COVID because the value of used cars had skyrocketed, so people paid a higher rate than they thought they should pay. But I think it should be all about the market rate. And, anyway, the language in the statute, as it was drafted and passed in 2022, had to be fixed because it was totally unmanageable by any of the towns here in the state of Connecticut. So we actually did that, and the other aspect of that bill had to do with the fact that they had included the commercial vehicles so that they would be taxed in a much different way than a business commercial vehicles. And we fixed the legislation there. So the commercial entities in urban areas, for example, where the mill rates are higher and the cost is higher, they wouldn't be fleeing to another town where they could get a lower tax bill.
Okay, well, I haven't kept up with that at all. I know that there's some people that think that the car tax should be eliminated. Of course, the state needs funding to do all the wonderful things it does, provide, public safety, support education. I mean, we wouldn't be building new schools in any towns, even the wealthy towns, without state support. It costs a lot of money to build a school, to rehab a school. And the state of Connecticut, which does have responsibilities for educating children throughout the state, and according to the state constitution, along with the towns, the responsibility is shared with the towns in a way that's sometimes hard for people to understand in terms of where the state's responsibility begins and ends, and where the town's responsibility begins and ends, and even within towns. I mean, I've represented 5 towns within the past 25 years, 5 area towns, not including Windham, which I've never represented. I can tell you that a lot of people do not understand the relationship between town government and the Board of Education in their towns. For example, the best example is that the school buildings and the school real estate, the school grounds, are not owned by the public schools. Windham Public Schools does not own the public school real estate. Public school real estate is owned by the town of Windham, the only entity that can own such property. And that is true in all 169 towns. So a lot of people don't understand that. And a lot of members of boards of education and boards of selectmen in various towns don't understand it either. So it's complicated, and the relationship is, unfortunately, when law is complicated, it leads to misunderstandings and sometimes leads to court cases, which costs money.
Dennis, one of the things that people don't understand either, because the focus on the car tax seems to me to be a bit kind of almost diversionary from the actual issue, which is to fully fund our educational system, to fully fund the towns that provide the services. Like here we are in the town of Windham, and we have 3 homeless shelters, but none of the towns around us have that, and they're, property tax free. We have all these subsidized housing units that are property tax free. We have nonprofits that are property tax free. And a lot of the property tax free properties aren't included in the payment in lieu of taxes statute. But we do have numerous properties in the pilot statute, which you were instrumental in fixing by making sure that they were tiered. We're in Tier 1, there's Tier 2 and Tier 3, to make sure that the reimbursement rates for the Tier 1 actually are higher because they're poorer populations and they have a huge amount of properties that are not funded and are also state pilot properties that are not fully funded. So that was a big, big change, and it really helped the town of Windham. The other thing that has been changed over the last several years is fully funding our education cost-sharing grant, which was underfunded to the tune of $10 million a year about 5 or 8 years ago. Now we're up to receiving the full amount that's in accordance with the formula for the education cost-sharing grant, in accordance with what was suggested by the Horton versus Meskel case. So that is something that we're now more in compliance with, and we hadn't been for several years. So these are things that'll take some of the burden off the people in towns like ours, and we now have to take a look at the special education budget, because we haven't changed special education funding formulas since the 1970s when Governor Meskel put them in place. And what the formula is, it's a 4.5 times the per pupil cost, and then the state is supposed to step in and provide 80% of the balance there. And the state usually doesn't provide the whole 80%. They usually provide around somewhere 75% right in there. And then, depending on what the spending cap says, and then the town gets to pay the balance, which is the proposed or supposed 20%, but ends up being almost 30% of whatever is left in terms of the cost. So this is something that the towns really struggle with. Talk about complexity, Dennis. This is a huge complex issue, and when the town has a student who moves into that town and needs special education, especially one that needs maybe even in institutional care at some point. In these kinds of circumstances, the town ends up paying, adding $500,000 sometimes to their budget because of the special education systems that we have put in place that need addressing.
Well, my experience with it has been as a town attorney in all these towns. And I had one situation several years ago. I don't know what the situation is now, but it seemed to me that, the town would pay so much up front and then for special ed, and then much later in the year, the town would be reimbursed to the extent required by law, supposedly, by the state of Connecticut, and the money would come back to the town. But they would pay the money to the town hall, to the town officials, to the chief executive officer of the town, and oftentimes chief executive officers would see the check, and they would want to hold on to it for the town government and not pass it on to the Board of Ed, and vice versa. And sometimes money would go to the boards of ed when it really should have gone to the town for reimbursement, because towns sometimes would front the money to the Board of Ed, because the Board of Ed was hurting because they weren't getting the money up front for special ed, and it was impossible to predict through the course of a school year how many special ed students would be in the town and how much it would cost to educate them. And sometimes it's an awful lot of money. But in any event, I had this case where the town did front money to the Board of Education, which was hurting, and then the check from the state went to the Board of Education, and the Board of Education refused to give the money to the town, who had fronted the money to the Board of Education, and it was owed to the town. I represented the town. Another lawyer represented the Board of Education. We did battle, and I was eventually able to persuade the lawyer for the Board of Education that check should have been passed on to the town, and it was. Okay, and that was my understanding, my first dealing with that kind of issues, Susan. But I'll tell you, one of the things that I've spent a lot of time doing over the years is working with trying to get education officials and I call them town hall officials, to work together more closely. And so it has happened in some towns, and it's wonderful when it happens, because in my experience, that's been the exception to the rule. And we really try to not end up going to court over these things. I'm always telling people, look, anytime you go to court over an issue, it's a failure. It's a breakdown in communications. It's a failure to negotiate, to compromise, to work. It's always better to do that than to go and put it in front of a judge who probably won't understand all of the issues at first. The trial will take a long time, and the lawyers will make out well, but the town won't make out well, and the taxpayers won't make out well. So people, almost in any case, it's always better to work it out and not go in front of a judge.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's true. But you can take a look at what happened with the Connecticut Coalition for Justice and Education funding case. I mean, here we are with a case that went all the way up to the Supreme Court for standing issues, and then got back down went to trial. And then it took about 10 years before they came up with a decision, which was made by the state Supreme Court again, that really didn't do a whole lot. On the other hand, without that case, the full funding for our education cost-sharing formula probably would not have been accomplished, because in that particular case, we had depositions, and we had discovery and depositions that actually allowed people to, understand where the underfunding for the school systems were, and it gave us a chance to make those arguments and make sure the Office of Fiscal Analysis understood what they were saying to us when we were saying that we were not getting full funding, especially in some of the poorer towns, because the towns, as you know, Dennis, the Horton versus Meskel case was a case where they were supposed to take into consideration what the tax base was in the town and what the needs of the people were in the town, generally speaking. And by not doing that properly, by cutting those towns that had the biggest needs because they were a little more expensive, these were the things that had been going on for years and years. Because why? Because of the so-called guardrails, or back in the day, the spending cap. So those places were cut. Now we know that they should not be cut, and we're working very, very hard to make sure that the guardrails do not interfere with the education of our little ones, because we need to make sure that our children are properly educated and have the correct resources.
Well, the case that Susan was referring to, the CJEF case, is the CCJEF, Connecticut Coalition for Justice in Education Funding. That was a case that was the progeny or offshoot of the Horton versus Meskel case that was brought by a parent who happened to be a law school classmate of mine, Wesley Horton. So it goes back a long way. It's been in place a long time, but it was never fully implemented. But partly because of the reason that Susan mentioned, because the state said, well, we just don't want to spend any more. They spend $2 billion a year roughly on educating children in Connecticut schools, and that's out of an annual budget that's over $20 billion a year.
Let me just say something about that, because that hadn't changed at all for the last 30 years. So the towns have not been able to allocate the proper amount of money by increasing and indexing the amount to give to the towns.
Yeah, and when the towns don't get enough money from the state, who pays for that? The local property taxpayers. And that is what makes your property taxes so high, because of the cost, primarily because of the cost of education, because the major cost of local government is educating children, which is probably the most important function local government has. We have to educate our children. We have to try to educate them to the extent that they can be productive citizens, grow up to be taxpayers, and help contribute, have wonderful lives, great jobs, and contribute also to the health and wealth of the town. And so the CJEF case, the Connecticut Coalition Justice Education case, was brought to try to finally implement Horton versus Meskel and fairly distribute the limited amount of state money to the towns, and the towns that were getting the worst end of it were towns like Windham, New Britain, my hometown, Hartford, New Haven, Bridgeport, Waterbury, New London, and so I was appointed to be on that coalition by the town, actually by Ernie Eldridge, who was the mayor of the town. He knew about my experience in federal court. He knew that I had done a lot of litigation, and he wanted me on that steering committee, put me on the steering committee, so I was part of that case. And that case was won at the trial level, but as Susan mentioned, when it went up to the state Supreme Court, it was lost. But the trial court judge did such a remarkably great job, wrote a 100-page decision, had a full trial, evidence discovery, and they took this legislature in their wisdom. They took all that information and they finally made the changes that needed to be made. And Susan played a big role in that, and we're still in the process of implementing it.
Yes, we are, but it should be done by 2026. We should have that money completed for all the districts, all fairly funded. Anyway, Dennis, we managed to not get through all the whole agenda of yesterday, but we'll be back in another show next week, right, Dennis? And
yeah, and I promise we'll bring in another great guest, because we're known for our terrific guests that we have on the show, and we usually don't do a Dennis and Susan show without a guest, and that's one of the reasons why, we're the longest running evening talk show on WILI by far, and that's because of the guests we get. And,
we have great guests,
and because Matt Rupart does a fantastic job
Yay,
of producing
Matt Rupart.
our
Yes.
show, and we will be back next week with a fabulous guest, and we hope you'll tune in. Thank you so much.
Happy
and again,
4th of July.
Happy 4th of July. See you at the parade.